What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are going to be discussing 5 players that I think are being overrated in your 2024 Dynasty rookie drafts. It is about that time. We are about a week and a half away from the NFL draft, at least the first round of it. So we got to talk about these prospects. All of these guys are going to be being drafted in the first 2 rounds of your rookie drafts. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about my first overrated player. Now, the first player we're going to be talking about today is going to be Xavier, wide receiver out of Texas. He currently has an ECR, and if you're not familiar with what ECR is, it's expert consensus rankings. You can find it on Fantasy Pros. It is basically the average of all of these experts rankings, and it kind of gives us an idea of ADP and where these guys are being drafted. But Xavier is being drafted as the 13th overall player. He is the wide receiver 6 in those rankings right now, and that is going to project him as a late first round rookie pick, maybe an early second round rookie pick, depending on the type of league that you play in. And Xavier is coming off of a 2023 season where he had 75 receptions for 1,014 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, Worthy's seen his draft stock skyrocket ever since he ran that historic 4.21 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. Despite most of us expecting him to run fast, I am worried that this is going to result in dynasty managers double counting his speed in their prospect evaluation. And lost in the Combine speed is the fact that Worthy weighed in at a thin 165 pounds, which already is enough for us to feel like he may have some question marks and it may require a very specific role at the next level. But due to his above average route running and speed, he does feel more like a speedy slot to me, who's probably going to be doing his dirty work downfield on post routes, on 9 routes, those kind of big plays that you see out of these NFL receivers. And digging into the data, Worthy saw a 68.4% success rate versus man coverage. That puts him in the 44th percentile, and an 80.7% success rate versus zone coverage. That puts him in the 59th percentile. But where some of the concerns come is he did struggle heavily against press coverage. He only succeeded against press 59.5% of the time. That is the 28th percentile. So obviously we want to see some better numbers out of Worthy there in that benchmark. And although I've talked a little bit about the negative, there are some things to like about Xavier Worthy as a prospect. It just feels to me like he has lacked some discipline in the receiver fundamentals department, mainly because he has been able to default to his speed at the college level. And it will be interesting to see how the NFL reacts to the speed as far as his draft capital goes. But I feel like this is a day 2 prospect who can find success in the right scheme with a good coaching staff, but he still needs to get better at some of the basic things if he wants a chance to become a major fantasy football contributor for your dynasty teams. And now the second player we're going to be talking about is going to be Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. His ECR is an average overall rank of 17.6. That puts him as the QB5 in this class and an early second round, maybe a mid second round pick in your 2024 rookie drafts. He is coming off of a 2023 season here where he had 4,903 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Now, there is no doubt that Michael Penix Jr. was incredibly fun to watch during the 2023 season. He was able to throw bombs downfield to not only one of the best college wide receivers in Rome Odunze, but 2 more NFL-worthy wide receivers in Jaylen and Jalen McMillan as well, and he was playing behind one of the nation's best offensive lines. The issue with Penix is that he is far from a complete prospect, and he is also a 6-year starter with multiple shoulder and knee injuries on his resume, and digging into the data, it leaves a lot to be desired. Penix was awful within 10 yards. He struggled heavily with touch and direction. He had a 77.4% success rate in the 1 to 5 yard area and a 65.2% success rate in that 6 to 10 yard area. Both of those numbers are well below what we would like to see out of an NFL caliber quarterback. And even more concerning is the fact that Michael Penix struggled with accuracy downfield, which is funny because I feel like that's what people like the most out of Michael Penix's game. But Penix was only successful on about 44.4% of his throws over 20 yards, which for the record is worse than all of the other quarterbacks being talked about in the first and second round of your rookie drafts and of the NFL draft. And I also have concerns about his play under pressure and outside of the pocket. Penix produced a 35.2% success rate under pressure, which is worse than any quarterback prospect over the last 2 draft classes. Nobody was even below 42% before Michael Penix got that grade. And not only does he struggle under pressure heavily, he was also only pressured on 21.1% of his attempts in 2023 at Washington, meaning that he was pressured less than his peers, but he struggled more than his peers in those pressure situations. You have to assume the chance of him getting a good offensive line in the NFL is probably pretty low, which obviously will not bode well for Michael Penix Jr. But overall, Penix is a fun quarterback to watch when you throw on the highlights, but the film and the data do leave a lot to be desired, like I mentioned. And I think most people will want Michael Penix to go to a situation where he could have a clear path to starting reps right away. But I honestly feel like that is going to be the worst possible scenario for Michael Penix. I think the best situation is for him to go to a team with a veteran quarterback and probably sit behind him for a year or two. A team maybe like the Los Angeles Rams where he could sit behind a Matthew Stafford. That is most likely the best scenario for Michael Penix and for his development if he is going to become a starting quarterback at the professional level. Now moving on to the third player, we are going to be talking about Jaylen Wright, running back out of Tennessee. He has an average overall rank of 17.9. A positional rank of the running back 3 in this class, and a rookie draft projection of a mid-second round pick. He had a 2023 season here with 137 carries for 1,013 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And Jaylen Wright has slowly been gaining some hype in the Dynasty community ever since the NFL Combine. He was able to post a 4.38 40-yard dash and a 38-inch vertical. And quite honestly, there may be some people in your home league that don't even know who he is, but experts have him as the RB3 in this class. The truth is he's probably somewhere in between both of those realities, and Jaylen saw steady progression over his 3-year career at Tennessee. He was always improving as a runner, but when you look at the production score by NFL Next Gen Stats, he scored a 68 out of 99 for his production, and that came in as the RB11 in this class from a production standpoint. The athleticism for Wright is something that we definitely are not doubting. He ranked second amongst all of the running backs in the 2024 class. I just worry that he may be a little bit too one-dimensional to be considered a mid-second round pick, especially in a tier with some really good wide receivers and in contention for that best running back in the class. And I've been saying it all offseason, but for most of these running backs in this class, the draft capital is going to tell us more about how we should be valuing these types of players on our Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. If Wright receives day 2 draft capital, that certainly is what would need to happen for his Dynasty draft capital to be worth it in those rookie drafts in that mid-second round. I just think we still lack a lot of context with this running back class due to a lot of the players kind of being similar talents. So I am going to be leaning on that draft capital in the NFL draft to tell us what we should be doing with them in the rookie drafts. But Wright's mediocre production and his average vision as a runner, paired with a deep NFL draft class, makes me worry that he may not receive that day 2 draft capital that he is going to need to be relevant for your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams. And now the fourth overrated player in your rookie drafts is going to be Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. He has an average overall rank of 20.4, a positional rank of wide receiver 9, and his rookie draft projection is going to be that mid-second round, maybe even a late second round pick. He is coming off of a 2023 season where he had 50 receptions for 658 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, Keon Coleman has been one of the most polarizing wide receiver prospects in this year's class so far. At one point, he was deemed as a top 12 pick in rookie drafts earlier this offseason, but a slower than expected 40-yard dash seemed to be probably the first thing that started to push people down on him. But the 40-yard dash is the last of my worries. It's probably nothing compared to some of the other red flags that he has. And to me, Coleman is one of, if not the single most scheme-dependent wide receiver in this class if we're going to get any type of long-term fantasy success out of him. If you just threw on the highlights, which by the way are very good, you guys are seeing them on the screen right now, you would think that Keon Coleman is a dominant X type of wide receiver, but this is far from the truth. Coleman took more snaps off of the line of scrimmage than he did on the line as a true X receiver at 58.6%, and he struggled heavily against man and press coverage despite his size and that large catch radius that he possesses. And with a 62.7% success rate versus man coverage, putting him in that 20th percentile, an 80.2% success rate versus zone, putting him in the 59th percentile, and a 55.2% success rate versus press, putting him in that 19th percentile. This tells us that Keon may be better suited as a big slot, similar to a Juju Smith-Schuster type of wide receiver at the NFL level. However, if Keon Coleman finds himself in a situation where the roster already has a great slot wide receiver, or maybe just has other plans for Keon based on his frame, probably trying to put him as that X type of wide receiver for their NFL roster, I do think it could be very, very bad for Keon Coleman's development, and obviously that would not be what we want to see for our Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. With really no consistent success on any route besides maybe the curl and the dig route at times, Keon feels far more like a developmental prospect than he does as a professional wide receiver at this point in his career, and he's someone who I would rather pass on and gamble on other assets in this tier with him than mess around with trying to hit on Keon Coleman, unless of course he does land in the absolute perfect situation, but we will not know that until the NFL draft. My guess is it's going to be pretty hard for him to land in that type of situation, so right now I am not in on the prospect of Keon Coleman. And now the fifth and final overrated rookie that we're going to be talking about today is going to be Roman Wilson, wide receiver out of Michigan. He has an average overall rank of 23.4, That is a positional rank of the wide receiver 11 in this class, and that is going to make him a late second round pick in those 12-man rookie drafts. Wilson is coming off of a 2023 season where obviously he won a national championship. He also posted 48 receptions for 789 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. Now, Roman Wilson is another player who has seen his draft stock increase after he posted a really good week of practice at the 2024 Senior Bowl. And this has caused many fantasy football managers to also push Roman Wilson up their draft boards for their rookie drafts as well. But when you throw on the film and you dig into the data, Wilson is really an average route runner who has primarily been used as a slot option at Michigan. 64.1% of his snaps were taken in the slot, and that will most likely be where he makes his money at the NFL level. Wilson saw a 62.4% success rate versus man coverage. That is good for the 19th percentile, a 72.2% success rate versus zone coverage. That is the 11th percentile, and a 50% success rate versus press coverage. That is the 15th percentile. Obviously, those numbers are not very good from a prospect that had a dominant Senior Bowl, and this tells me that that Senior Bowl domination might have been a fluke, and it didn't necessarily translate to the film that we saw from Roman there at Michigan. Wilson lacks size, and I think it forces him to rely on his speed to beat press coverage. It gets harder to do that at the NFL level, and it's not like Wilson is a speed demon in the first place, not like a guy like Xavier Worthy. So I think he's going to need to take a pretty large technical leap if he does want to find a big role in an NFL offense. And even looking at his route tree, he also wasn't used a lot all over the field. He was pretty much an intermediate and deep ball focused wide receiver. So like I mentioned, where he's going to probably find his best success at the NFL level is probably going to be that slot type of wide receiver that's used to take the top off of a defense and stretch that football field. However, kind of similar to Keon Coleman, this is going to take a specific role with the right head coach and the right coaching staff to put him in a good position. As far as fantasy football goes, there's probably a lot better fantasy football options to be drafting here in the late second round of your rookie drafts because this class is very deep, and I think some other players probably have a higher chance at being fantasy football relevant than Roman Wilson currently has right now. Now, with that being said, that is the end of this video. If you guys did like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. That is the best way to show this channel some support. And if you want to take it a step further, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well if you're not subscribed to the channel already. We got content like this coming out all the time, hoping to help you guys win your Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues later this year. And lastly, I also have a free Discord. It is going to be linked in the description. That is where I ask for your guys' help in future videos with trade review shows, rookie mocks, startup mock drafts, and you guys have direct access to ask me any Dynasty Fantasy Football questions that you may have. So like I said, it is free. There is no risk in joining that Discord. So with all that being said, I will see you guys on our next video, but until then, peace out.